Hey everyone, on today's podcast, Chris and I are talking all about Chris's military career, what he learned from it, and how he applies it to business today. Check it out.
What's up?
Hey everyone, welcome back to Contractor Growth Network. I'm Logan.
And I'm Chris Livingston.
And today we've got kind of a special one, something unique and different. And what we're talking about is Chris and I are both in the military. Chris, first off, thank you for your service.
Shut up.
No, thank you. No, please thank me for mine. No, but seriously, so we're talking all about both of our military careers because we had very different careers as a whole.
And what prompted this? Just wondering.
I was just thinking about it the other night. There's a lot of contractors who come out of the military, and I was talking to, I forget who I was talking to, but essentially it was the same path of like, I got out of the military and I had no stability. Like there was nothing, like everybody wants you to stand at the American flag because it's disrespectful to the troops, but then nobody ever talks about what happens when you get out. It's like when you get out of jail, maybe that's what it was. I was listening to a podcast the other night that was talking about what is the first day out of jail like? Mm-hmm. And they said it is one of the scariest things because you get out, and even if you're only in there for a little bit of time, life moves so fast that it's scary, right? Think about like your phone. Like you get a new phone every year, right? Imagine if you're away for 10 years and you come back out and you still got, this Motorola Razr. Like it's just, everything's so different. So they were talking about that and it reminded me of you where you're like, I need like the way that when we get out of the military is terrible. So I was like, okay, I wonder if we just like talked about our experiences in the military, what we took away from it and what we apply these days.
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. All right. So Chris, jump into it. Tell us your career.
All right. So I had a unique kind of career. So I originally was starting out doing some ROTC. So I did ROTC at Virginia Tech, and with Virginia Tech is this thing called the Corps of Cadets. Long story short, that did not go as planned. All right. So, did well in it, but just was not my cup of tea. Didn't necessarily act the way I should have acted. I guess,
Let's just go into that because people love stories. And this is also like, I can tell your story if you want me to.
Go ahead.
Okay. So here's my interpretation of Chris at Tech. So Chris, as you probably figured out at this point, he's kind of a, not a wild card, but you're not somebody that like, when you think of like, I have friends that are.
I don't go with the flow.
Yeah. I have friends that are in the military that are very regimented. Well, this is what the rule book says, so we have to follow it, right? You are not like that. So in college, you would go out, you would party and stuff like that, but you got in trouble for little things like when you first got there, your roommate was smoking weed, and because you didn't tell on him, but somebody found out, oddly enough, the roommate was fine, but you were kicked out.
Yeah, because honestly, I could make a lot of excuses behind it, but the reality was I had a lot of small, quote unquote, infractions. Right. So it was also like I was poking the bear a lot of times, right? And I, for a very long time, because I was physically fit and I knew all the military stuff, and I was just a really good cadet as far as like understanding like the military and things like that, then I was able to bypass a lot of the stuff, right? But I was having a lot of just little small infractions, and then finally I got a roommate who decides to smoke weed. In my mind, it's like none of my business to tell on him, because I'm not smoking, so I really don't care. But I did not tell on them, and then they caught me with this something called a general article, and that means I will not lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do. And so they were able to paint that picture as far as I lied because I did not tell on him.
Yeah. So you had that at Tech. Eventually you ended up getting kicked out.
No. So I got kicked out of the Corps of Cadets. And the way Virginia Tech works is if you're not part of the Corps of Cadets, you can't be part of the ROTC program. So I'm like, all right, well, I found out I'm not going to be part of the ROTC program anymore. And I owe quite a bit of money,
because you were on scholarship there.
Yep. So they were paying for my school, and they're paying out-of-state tuition as well. So then the whole situation happened. So I owe quite a bit of money. I'm looking at what my options are. I got this big debt to take care of.
How much was the debt?
Over $100,000.
Okay.
I think it was like 112 or something like that. I remember for a long time I knew it very, very well because it was a daunting number that at 20 years old to know that you owe that kind of money. But long story short, because I had done so well in ROTC, I made some good connections and whatnot, and someone pretty much gave me another option. They said, "Hey man, what you can do is you can enlist. I know you wanted to be an officer, but just you can enlist, and what we'll do is we'll pay off your service that way, and your debt will also go on with it as well." So I said, "You know what? I get to go to school for free. I get to enlist." Which was, different at the time. I didn't necessarily know if I wanted to do it. But one thing that actually struck with me, I had a good friend named John Stager, and John was he was 3 years older than me. And we had a very good, similar mindset. And he wanted to go to special operations when he was in the military. And so he was 3 years older than me. And the fact that he was able to go into the military and not go into special operations, even though he was a monster when it came to like it's physically being able to do
I've
it.
worked out with him, and he's probably 5'7", 160, runs a 5-minute mile, can squat 400. Like, it was just one of those guys that you look at him and you're like, okay, cool. He looks like he's in shape. And then you work out with him and you're like, damn.
Yeah, he's got a freaking motor and a mental game that's out of this world. So, but he wanted to go special operations, and because of the needs of the Army and because he was an officer, he didn't really have much say. He didn't have much say on where he wanted to go. He had to wait, the Army's pipeline in order to get to special operations. So I was like, you know what? This actually sounds kind of cool. The fact is, being enlisted, one of the greatest advantages that you have is you're able to choose your job, right? So I was able to choose my job. I was like, all right, this sounds great. And go to join. I enlist, go through my basic training, go through my AIT, which is like my specialty training, whatnot. After that, go to airborne school. After that, go to RASP, which is like the selection for to be a Ranger.
Okay, so hold on. Let's do this, because I think what you're doing is you are glazing over a lot of the good stuff. So here's how I remember it from Chris. So Chris goes in. They say, look, enlist, and then if you do really well in boot camp, we'll put you right through to OCS, which is Officer Candidate School, to immediately go in as an officer. You had a college education, so that was the whole thing. And you originally were going in, when you were in ROTC, wasn't the idea to become like a pharmacist within the Army?
Yeah. I thought of it as an opportunity for the military to pay for my pharmacy school too.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to ROTC. They need pharmacists in the military. They will pay for you to be able to do that. So, and I was good at science, so I was like, I might as well try this out. This is what I wanted to do.
So you go in, you do really well in boot camp, and then you say, hey, okay, great, I'm ready for OCS. What do they say?
No, straight up. The fact is, they had paid off my school. They had paid off some things, and it puts me now in a spot where they kind of have me, not necessarily in a corner, but I now no longer have that. I was trying to bypass. I was trying to, I could not commission through an ROTC program. So therefore I'm just going to enlist with a degree, and then I'll be able to go to OCS, and then now I can't do it. So because that kind of, I would say derailed me in a sense, but I was just like, it was poopy at the time, just because a lot of their peers that are doing things and everybody knows the military pay grade. You get to see it. It's online, right?
Yeah.
And when you have friends out there who are making, 3 times, 4 times as much as you in the same situation, I felt a little crappy at first.
Yeah. So then you go from there, and they say, well, you did pretty well, so we'll send you to Ranger Assessment and Selection Program, which is different than Ranger School.
It is. I'm biased. Well, I'm not just biased. I'm actually being right. But if you're not a Ranger unless you went to RASP or RIP, so that's just my little 2 cents.
So you go there and you get you make it through. Then they send you to Ranger School. So walk through, what's the difference between RASP and Ranger School?
So RASP is you're learning. The first couple weeks of RASP, they're weeding you out, right?
And just so I'm clear on this, and everybody's clear. If you go to Ranger School and you graduate, you're not automatically like in Ranger Battalion.
No. So okay, let me throw that out there. So you have a thing called being a Ranger. All right, being a Ranger means that you are part of the 75th Ranger Regiment. All right, so that means you are part of one of their battalions in the 75th Ranger Regiment.
And that's like what Pat Tillman was in, and everybody in World War II. Like that's like the Rangers were famous for all that stuff.
Exactly. When you think of the Omaha Beach and the beginning of the surge and
Saving Private Ryan, they were all in one of the Ranger battalions, right?
Yep. So actually in 2nd Ranger Battalion, but yeah, you can see the 2 diamond in the back of their helmets. Yeah.
And that's what you were in.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So so to be a Ranger, you are part of the 75th Ranger Regiment, right? There's something called Ranger School. So Ranger School is a leadership course that the military has. It sucks, but that makes you quote unquote Ranger qualified. I mean, you get a tab, you get some,
tab being like you get like a patch on your shoulder.
Yeah, you get a patch on your shoulder.
Ranger.
Exactly. It's good for selection points. It's a mandatory thing, for infantry officers and things like that. So it's a great opportunity for leadership, because the whole time, not only are you sucking in the sense of having to navigate, all the different phases of Ranger School, but you're also dealing with, sleep deprivation. You're also dealing with hunger, and you're also leading people who are also dealing with that as well. So it's a great leadership school. But the difference between that and RASP is very much, they're feeding you and things like that, but they're trying to prepare you to be a ranger right after you leave RASP. So like the thing is, after you leave RASP, you have enough training that you can be able to insert yourself into one of the line units. And I'm trying my best not to speak in military terms, but insert yourself into one of the units.
Because you got like deployed after you went to RASP, but you had not even gone to Ranger school yet, but you had deployed with like, a Ranger, within your Ranger squad.
Yeah.
But then you still had to go to Ranger school, where if you would have failed that, you would have then been kicked out altogether.
Yeah. So pretty much what they do is they kick you out of Rangers. Like there's a couple different exceptions, but the full understanding is you go to Ranger battalion to also get a Ranger tab, right? So you want to make sure that you have that. Like it's one of those things, just unwritten rules that you got to take care of. They call it, I can't think of it right now, but it's like, it's RFS, so released for standard. So you can be RFS'd from Ranger battalion if you are not able to, take care of your responsibilities as a Ranger, or if you get in trouble, and so you release for standards.
And at RASP, what was that like for you? Easy, hard, fun, shitty?
Dude, I got the, I can't think of the name it's called. I almost said ODub. That's actually wrestling. I got the outstanding soldier. I can't think of the name right now, but for my RASP class,
like an honor man or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Honor grad is actually called. It's called an honor grad. So I was honor grad in my RASP class. For me, I think I had like maybe the edge in the sense because early on in your military career, being physically fit is so important because they don't know, you don't have the opportunity to really know tactics just yet. I had the edge of going through 3 years of ROTC, doing all the, cool cadet stuff at first, doing the Ranger Challenge stuff, which things that really don't matter in the grand scheme of things. But at the same time is I've had this background of knowing what I'm supposed to do. I've been doing PT test for at least, 3 years prior. So I know exactly what I'm supposed to be taking care of. My body's already conditioned for this. And I also know what I have to do in order to get good at this stuff. So I think the hardest part for me for RASP was I want to say dealing with others, but I would say interacting with others because you know that you've got it. Like, you physically got it. Then the mental stuff comes in, right? So, when you're sucking, it's okay to suck, right? But then you look to your left and your right and you're having to lead people who are also sucking and you're trying your best not to, the whole time you're in the military in the very beginning, you're being yelled at. So you think that's your leadership style has to be yelling to motivate people. So I think it was just kind of a whirlwind going back and forth of trying to take care of yourself, take care of the person to your left and your right, and also just get through it because everybody was just trying to grind it out. You have everything from, obviously the 12-mile rucks and things like that. You have the PT test.
And I remember so with that, with these 12-mile rucks, you're not, first off, I remember talking to you because I think you had your phone with you and you were like, yeah, if you fail, I guess 1 or 2 evolutions or 1 or 2 of these like training circuits or, and one of which would be a ruck, which is you walk with a heavy ass backpack on. You're like, if you fail it, you're out. And I remember you told me that you had 3 hours to complete it.
Yep.
Which means you have to do 4 miles per hour.
Yeah. So it's 12 12-minute miles. I think.
And you finished it in like 11:59:53. And I remember texting with you. And I was like, yo, dude, like that is the difference of you stopping to tie your shoe and not.
Yeah. So dude, I could run my ass off. We had a 5 mile. I did the 5 mile in like 28 minutes and some odd seconds. So I was able to run, but I'm talking about, I'm 100 and maybe 45, 150 pounds at the time. And dude, putting heavy weight on my back was kicking my ass. So I would be for the first 2 rucks. So you do a 6 mile ruck, you do an 8 mile ruck, you do a 10 mile ruck, and then you do a 12 mile ruck. And this kind of prepping you to be able to do the 12 mile. The 12 mile is the one you have to make sure you pass, right? The other ones, you just make sure you don't quit. They want to try and test your stamina, whatever, things like that. So the 12 mile ruck comes and everybody knows you got to pass it. And I'm on mile like 8, 9, feeling good. Then all of a sudden I hit mile 10 and I cramp like crazy. I'm talking about, I am like, my legs are stiff. Like they will not, I can't bend them, I feel like. It's just like they're so stiff. I'm stiff leg walking and you're carrying a rifle with you the whole time too. I remember one time when people weren't looking, I was using that rifle as a cane to like freaking continue to, because I'm towards the very beginning, I'm beginning to middle of the pack. So I'm feeling really good and running with my ruck. Then all of a sudden it hits me like a freaking brick wall. And I'm seeing all these people that I know that are kind of like, you kind of gauge people in the class. They're kind of lower in the class that are passing me on this ruck. And I'm just I'm sucking, man. I'm sucking. And this is the worst part. So I finally get to maybe mile 11. So I'm just like grueling through this, this second to last mile. Get to mile 11. And what they have is they have a van behind you. So the van is like, it's pretty much on pace with what you have to be for the, to pass the ruck. And so what they're doing is they're picking up people who are, falling behind, any injuries and things like that. And you just, in your mind, you don't ever want to get in that van. You just don't want to do everything you can not to get in that van. So I'm running down this rock road, just, trying to get this stuff taken care of. And I'm hobbling down this road, and you can hear the van. You can hear the van behind you, but I'm like, I do not want to turn around. I don't want to see this van. I don't want to see that it's close enough to me. And then I'm trying to, muscle my way through this thing, man. No joke, those last 2 miles easily could have been 30 minutes each. I could have done, I'm not exaggerating because I was doing very, very well. Those last 2 miles are probably 30 minutes each. So, that was huge. Like 1/3 of my time happened on these last 2 miles. And I'm just like trying my best, like just making sure there's no way I'm going to ever quit. There's no way I'm going to quit. But I can't, also in my mind, I know.
Yeah. What are you saying to yourself during this?
Get through it, bro. Like, just get through it. Just keep just one step. I mean, you legitimately, when they have these water cans that show you like what mile marker you're at. So when you hit 11 miles, all you know, you got 1 mile to go. Like that you got to do it. But I promise you, like your legs just, I thought to myself, like, I know it's going to end at some point, and the reality will be I will end and be happy that this is over with and I accomplished it, or I'm going to be super miserable the entire time knowing that not only do I suck, but I sucked. I could have sucked more and just actually passed, but I sucked and failed, right? So I'm just hobbling through this, and this van is on my butt. And like the good thing was, like in RASP, they want you to be a Ranger. Like they want you to actually get through it and actually be a RASP. And Ranger school, like you treat like shit the whole time. It is what it is. But in RASP, they want you to succeed. And so I had done well in all the other things. So this guy named Sergeant Horbe actually was like, encouraging me on, like, dude, just get through it, man. Like, dude, you got time, just freaking get through it. Like, get through it. Like, don't stop, get through it.
And do they treat the guys that have already gone through RASP differently than the people that are just coming in from big army?
You're saying the guys who are, well, so the thing is, when you're in RASP at that time, no one is.
Or are we talking about RASP right now, or are you talking about Ranger school?
Right now I'm talking about RASP.
Oh,
so, yeah.
Okay.
So in RASP, the guys, they want you to succeed. They want you to, I mean, once you get past the first couple weeks when they recognize that you're physically fit, you're mentally tough, you got the 90% of what it takes to be there. They love this brotherhood too. They want you to be part of it if it makes sense, right? So they had seen like the other things I was able to do. Like I remember after I did the 5-mile run in like 28 minutes and some odd seconds, they're like, dude, like you want this? I'm like, yeah, because it wasn't just like I wanted to, because you had to do it in 40 minutes. It wasn't just like I wanted to pass. I wanted to freaking crush it.
Right.
And so I'm getting through it. And finally I get past this, there's this big clock, there's this digital stuff, and I'm just kind of like hobbling. I see the clock running down, and finally I get past. I think I had like either like 7 or 4 seconds left. I forgot the exact time. And legitimately right after it, this one of the instructors was like, what the fuck, Livingston, blah, 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 do push-ups. And dude, I get on my hands, I got my freaking ruck on my back, I get on my hands, and I'm able to knock out push-ups. And he's like, how the hell, like, why the fuck are you, like, how can you knock out push-ups? I'm like, bro, I was using my legs to walk, not my freaking arms, bro. Like,
I wasn't doing like burpee broad jumps, yeah.
Yeah, so that was definitely an interesting time. It was definitely humbling as well. And I think that a lot of the people saw like, okay, this he wants to be here. Not only is he, he's good at this stuff, like, he can run and do pull-ups, but when you're 145 pounds, yeah, you can do pull-ups all day, right? But to be able to put that pack on my back and be able to take care of it, even when I had the adversity of just having like, maybe it was like sodium, potassium situation where I should have had more, electrolytes in my system, or maybe it was just me being, a little bitch or whatever it was, but my freaking legs were shot and I was able to accomplish that, which was definitely at that time like the highlight of my military career.
Okay. And then from there, you go to Ranger school, you make it through Ranger school, and then now you're in 2nd Battalion. What was life from there? I mean, I don't know how much you want to talk about or can talk about, but like.
Yeah. I think it's awesome that you're part of this brotherhood, man, because you have this huge responsibility to take care of your responsibility. Because when you get there, you are like indoctrinated into this idea or this concept in your whole idea of like, you don't want to do anything that's going to lose your beret. So when you become a Ranger, you get a tan beret. And they always say it's a lot easier to get your beret than keep your beret, right? So you want to do the right stuff to make sure you stay there. And then I think finally when you get back, you're just like, okay, look, I belong here now. I belong around the people like the greats you hear about, right? When you think of like, Manuel Noriega, like actually being taken out, like those are Rangers. Or you hear about the different movies, those are Rangers. Or you hear about the Pat Tillmans of the world, those are Rangers. Think about the other Medal of Honor winners, those are Rangers. So it's like you feel like you finally belong in that environment. And in order to be able to belong to that lineage, you have to go above and beyond in all things that you do. So that was probably the biggest takeaway from that. It's just like you have a responsibility to not be good, but to uphold the Ranger creed and just be fight harder, fight faster. Be better than everyone else around you.
Okay. Did you like it?
I did. I mean, definitely there's some suck involved, but I did, man. Like there's some stories out there that I like, even if they're not necessarily the war stories, but just the times I'm thinking to myself. You got time for one real quick?
Dude, we got plenty of time.
All right. So
I keep trying to pull this out of you because you're like, yeah, man. So like military career was good. Did all this stuff, did this stuff. And yeah, that's about it. And I'm like, no, stop. Like I know a lot of this stuff, Chris. Like I'll tell your story for you if you don't want to tell it, but I want you to like go through this stuff because it makes you.
Well, so I think the fun thing when I think about being a Ranger was all the silly things, man. Like when you're overseas and you have like, going up and eating meals in the middle of the night, going back and getting, if you're getting ready for a mission or if you're getting, you're going back to your little shack or whatever, where you have all these posters of just random girls and stuff like that, just the stupid stuff like that. But then also I think about like, it's kind of crazy because, so one time I'm jumping out of an airplane, right? And we have this thing, I don't know what I can and cannot say as far as names, so I won't say the name, but we have this thing, and what Rangers are good at are two things, all right? They're good at airfield seizures, and they're good at quick action raids, all right? So airfield seizure means there's an airfield out there, maybe it's a foreign airfield. Rangers can go to that airfield, seize that airfield, get it prepped and ready for other aircraft to fly in so that we can take over that airfield. The other thing is quick action raids, whatever that may be, right? So one of the things we practice all the time is airfield seizures. So when we're doing this, we're actually jumping out of a plane at a pretty low altitude, around 1,200 feet, I think it is, in the middle of the night, and you're actually jumping to hit tarmac or actually hit the actual runway. So you're jumping not to hit grass or things like that. You're actually going to hit concrete, right? So you prep and all this other stuff before you go out there, and the whole time, because it's the middle of the night, you have night vision goggles and all your different equipment and stuff. So I'm pretty new to the Ranger game at this point. And I have my night vision goggles and I have them in my pack, the pack you carry in your side. And this guy was like, dude, don't carry them on your side, because you carry them on your side, what's going to happen is you're not going to be able to see when you get out there. You got to fumble through them. What you need to do is there's this small little nylon cord you should carry around your neck and tuck it under your shirt. And you can do that, right? And he's a jump master, which means he's qualified to tell me he could do that. Well, he was 100% correct. But the guy that was JMPIing me or pretty much checking my chute before I jump was like, dude, I've never seen this happen before. You need to put your stuff in your pack. I'm like, dude, the guy told me I could do it. And he was like, no, man, I understand that, but I've never seen it done. And I'm not trying to get you like screwed. Like, you need to put this in your pack. So this whole time I'm like planning to have it around my neck. So all I got to do is take them off my neck, put them on top of my helmet. I can see right away, but I put them on my pack. So I jump out of the plane. All right. Just like anytime you probably expect, hit this tarmac, boom, like hit it hard. And I'm a little like,
and this is at nighttime, right?
Yeah, this is at nighttime, right? So I hit this, this concrete hard. I thought, land out of this plane, and they have a responsibility because there's passes or groups of people who've jumped before me. And the whole thing is you're all, trying to do the tactical things to clear this airfield. And one of the platoons' responsibility is to clear a certain taxiway. And I landed on that taxiway. So they're like, dude, grab this guy's stuff and get it off this taxiway. So my parachute's there, my actual ruck is there because you drop it with your ruck, your weapon's there, and your weapon is also in that same pack, your Moss C as my night vision goggles were. So someone grabs my stuff and pulls it away, but I grab my weapon, I put it into action, but I don't have my freaking nods, so I don't have my night vision goggles. And I'm like, where the crap are they? I don't know where they are. I mean, you can see because there's some moon, but you can't see that well. And so I have no idea where my freaking night vision goggles are.
And what's the downside to not having your night vision goggles on you?
Well, you can see, but the thing is, when you land, you have a responsibility to go to your coordinates on that airfield, right? To take care of your quote unquote mission. So I run over. I cannot find my night vision goggles. I know like these things are probably $5,000. They're considered SI, so like sensitive item. Where you like if we didn't lose, if I actually lost these things, like we would be out there probably till today, like looking through the grass to find these things. It would be a big deal, right? So I go over to a guy named Sergeant Hill. And I'm like, hey, what's up, brother? Like, I'm here, but I can't find my freaking nods. He's like, where are they? I'm like, well, they're in one of those bags over there, but I don't know. He's like, go get them. So I'm like, all right. So I'm going over there, like trying to fish through the stuff, and everybody else is taking care of their stuff. I'm trying to fish through these things, like find my night vision goggles, because we wrap them in bubble wrap, right? So I know that they're in there, but I cannot find them. So finally, I find them, but they're like intertwined in this nylon parachute. This parachute's huge, right? And I'm like trying to find them at night, trying to go through the parachute, trying to find them, and I cannot get them out. And like, because I'm a young Ranger, and I'm trying my best to get back to our, unit of our guys and not be the one who's screwing everything up. I'm like, fuck it. All right. Be smart, don't, smarter, not harder. So I freaking take the parachute and I'm like ripping it open with my teeth. I'm legitimately like biting this parachute, ripping it open because I can feel the bubble wrap in there, but I can't get to it. I'm ripping this stuff over. And while you're doing this, you have OCs or pretty much observers who are like observing, because this is a training mission. So you're guys who are observing how things are going. One of the OCs walks by me and was like, what are you doing? And he was actually my first sergeant at the time. I was like, first sergeant, my nods are in here and I'm just trying to get them out. He was just like, okay. So he walks away and I'm like legit biting through this parachute. I'm biting through it. I finally get my nods, pull out of the bubble wrap, put it on my helmet. I'm good to go. And I run back, right? And so I run back, and at this time, a lot of the other people had already done their thing. I was working at the JCCP, which is the Joint Casualty Collection Point. So if any casualties are going to happen, they're going to come to that point, and then we have a responsibility to treat them at there. So we hadn't had any casualties yet. And so I'm standing there, and everyone around me is like, hey, Livingston, you hungry? And I'm like, no, man, I'm good. I'm good. And like, no, man, you sure you're not hungry? And I'm like, no, man, I'm good. So it's the middle of the night, and we all before we go out there, we always eat and stuff. And sometimes we call it pocket dogs. You take a hot dog and put it in your pocket with, aluminum foil they give to you. And I was already fed. So I'm like, what the hell are these guys talking about? Like, no, I'm fine. Well, it comes to find out at the end of all of this, my first sergeant had gone back over to the JCCP while I was doing this and was like, dude, your freaking guys over here biting through fucking parachutes. Like, what the fuck do you got? Like, what's going on with this guy? So the whole time they're asking me if I'm hungry, because they're like, as some joke, because they're wondering if I was fucking eating a parachute. But I don't know. Like, those kind of stories, man, like those are the things that I really do miss, man. Because like those are the things where I just think to myself, like, there was probably a better way to get this stuff done. Like, I probably could have not been so frantic, could have like opened the parachute, found the nods, pulled them out, or I could have just like, when I hit the ground, remember, hey, your nods are in this mossy, go grab your nods and get them out. But like, those are the things that I really do miss.
So what'd you learn from like your whole career? I mean, how long were you in for?
About 5.5. Well, I was a Ranger for about 5.5 years, about 6 years total though.
Okay. What are some of the things that you learned?
I learned that you can do a lot more than you may think you can. I think that when you get to a certain scenario, I think that though we like homeostasis as our human body, I think our bodies are also able to adapt to situations. So no matter what it is, like, I mean, you give me a hard time about it all the time, but I live like a little bit of chaos in my life at all times. Like a little bit of a little bit of unknown, a little bit of chaos in my life. And I feel like that helps me continue to grow and stay hungry in that way. Also, community is so important, man, because if you're around other go-getters like that every single day, you don't have the ability to just like slack. I remember times which I'm carrying, carrying a litter, which is, litter is a little bed that you have people lay on when they're injured. But I'm carrying a litter and I'm just like tired as crap. But no matter how tired I am, I just legitimately, my hand would not let me stop holding this thing because of the fact that people around me are also doing it. They're probably sucking too, but they probably have a responsibility to me as well. So they just, so your community was so important. And I think leadership was probably the biggest thing that I learned from there. Like if you have someone out there who is able to get you motivated to do the right thing, even when they're not there, or to keep a certain standard, like that was so important. And I feel like that was probably the biggest takeaway I got from, my time as a military.
And for you, I mean, like there's a lot of contractors out there that are, they were military, they come out and then they're like, well, I don't know what else to do. I might as well just start my own business because I'm a little bit handy. And this is something that we kind of talked about when you were at Qdoba, where it's like in the military, if there's somebody who's below you and you're like, yo, go do this, they go do it.
Yeah.
But here, if you're like, hey, Mike, go do this, Mike's like, I'm not fucking doing that.
Yeah.
You can't yell at him.
Yeah, you gotta lead from a totally different vein. You gotta really understand people's why. Because in the military, I think we all have like a very similar why. Like, we all join the military for a couple different reasons. But at the end of the day, we all have the same overall mission. But if I was talking to somebody at Qdoba, or if I was talking to someone here, like the reality is like the why is very, very different. And you have to understand that why. You have to be able to, lead them in that way. Like, show them the value of them holding their own end of the bargain so we can, succeed as a team.
So essentially what you're talking about is leading with a carrot versus leading with a stick.
Yeah. I mean, in the military, what happens is in the very beginning, when you go through basic trainings and things like that, you're yelled at. So what happens is, and that's the best way, in my opinion, to get people from all different walks of life in a short period of time on the same page, right? So if you scare them with a little bit of fear and yelling at them or whatever it may be, we'll all get in line a lot quicker than we try to coddle people, right? But once you leave that environment, like you cannot lead with the stick any longer because people don't have a responsibility to you the same way.
And when you say leave that environment, you mean like leave like the basic training environment or leave the military as a whole?
It should be the basic training environment. Unfortunately, I was sad to say that some people don't realize that you have to stop leading with the stick when you get out of the basic training environment. But 100% when you're out of the military, like you said, like the military is kind of crazy to me because I think to myself, like it's the only job I can think of in this country that you are legally obligated. You signed a contract to work there. So not you sign a contract, but you sign a contract that's going to have a certain end date. So maybe 4 years from now, you actually can leave your job. Think about that. Like, what other jobs are out there that you cannot leave your job for 4 years? Like, you're obligated to be there, and there's actually like you're legally obligated. Like, you take your ass to jail if you don't. So it's pretty crazy.
So, would you change anything about your career? Like, is there something that do you wish you would have gotten out earlier, gotten out, like still been in it, done anything differently?
I'm very. I mean, this may not just be military, but I'm also very big on. I don't really have regrets. Especially not regrets on things that I've done. I think that it definitely shaped me in a lot of ways. I think a lot of, maybe if I was able to go back and look at different perspectives, different ways, I would love to do that because I think that it would allow me to just really succeed maybe at a faster rate, or it would allow me to like understand what I was going through at the time and things like that. But maybe change perspective, but never have any regrets.
Okay. What was your one big takeaway
from the military?
Yeah.
I would say the value of leadership and how bad leadership can destroy any great organization.
And how do you apply that to here?
I feel like no matter what, you got to be a leader. No matter if you are in a followership role, if you are in a leader role, if you are in middle management, if you are, a entry-level person, you've got to be a leader. Like, I feel like you have got to be a leader because if you are not that, you're producing dead weight. I think about it being a 150-pound kid, 23, 24 years old, carrying, same amount of weight on my back and, and ammo and equipment and stuff. Like, yeah, I could easily suck and say, oh, this is too heavy for me. I'm double my weight right now because of the fact that I'm carrying all this weight. And I look over to my left and got, one of my Ranger buddies is 6'3", 2 something, and 230. And I'm thinking to myself, perspective wise, he's probably carrying a similar amount of weight than I am. But I want to give it to someone to him. Like, no, like that's not how it operates. Like if I need to take some weight, yeah, he would help me out. But I want to take care of my own spot. All right. Because if I don't take care of my own spot, what I'm going to now do is I'm going to take him away from what he's got to do. Because if maybe he's running up and down that line, telling guys like where we're going and like, making sure guys are topped off on water, make sure guys are taken care of. And if I take away space from other people because I'm not taking care of my own space, then I'm really hurting the team overall.
Okay, cool. Mike, any other questions you want me to ask Chris?
You asked the one that I wanted to, just trying to tie it back to how it applies to business. So I think we've just broadened it just a little bit more. So Chris, if any other contractor is in a similar situation, what's an additional way that you have applied it to your role here outside of leadership? Is there anything else that translates?
And let me do this. Let me restate what Mike said so we have it on the mic. So essentially what he's asking for is, are there any other principles or anything else that Chris learned in the military as far as leadership goes that he has applied to here?
No, that outside of leadership.
Oh, I'm sorry, outside of leadership. Anything that's outside of leadership, have you applied to here?
To be honest with you, man, I think it's all leadership. It's all leadership and mindset. I mean, I think leadership is the way I probably encompass all of it, right? I mean, but you have mindset, you have different tactics you do. I mean, I talked to you about this before. Like, there's so much value the military gave me when it comes to like doing counselings, right? Doing monthly counseling. When you're in the military, you hate this crap.
What does that mean?
So monthly counseling?
Yeah.
So pretty much in the military, what you're doing is you're giving someone an assessment of how they're doing that month or the previous month. You do that once a month, right? So your subordinates, you're making sure that they have a clear understanding of first of all, how they're doing compared to expectations, and then what the future expectations are. So you're able to give them this, the calibration very, very, frequently, so they're able to stay on track. For me, it was so important because I remember being young where I'm thinking to myself like, well, hey, I'm trying to do these things. And I recognize that what my goals and my wants were, if they weren't aligned with my leadership's goals, then I likely was not going to be able to do them. So what I needed to do was I needed to understand my leadership's goals overall. I needed to understand the overall company's mission, right? And then I also needed to understand like what I wanted to do and be able to articulate that to leadership so we can see how those are able to merge and marry together.
So essentially, let me try to spin this back into business. So essentially what you're doing here with this is the company that we work for, or where you are, they have a mission in itself.
Yep.
Right. So over here, the whole mission is to get contractors back with their kids and have the kids have two financially supportive present parents. That's the company's mission. And if you work here, that has to be part of something you're driving for as well, because if you don't really give a shit about kids or parents or anything like that, it's probably, it's going to be tough to work here. At the same time, everybody else has their own individual mission of what they want out of life, right? Some people here love work. Other people here work so that they can go out and like have fun in the evenings and stuff like that. And it's all where you get your energy from. So what you're saying is in the Army, what you were doing was you were essentially trying to figure out the overlap of what's Chris's individual mission in life, plus what is the overall mission of what we're trying to do here, and how do these things overlap to make sure that it's a win-win for both? Yeah,
I think that what happens sometimes is people don't realize that you have to come from that mindset, because if you don't, if you're going to live a horrible, miserable life if the company's mission is the only thing that's ever, valued, right? And then the company can't operate if it's only your mission, a personal mission that's being, catered to. So it's got to be an overlap there, right? So it's got to be like you've got to understand the company's mission, and you sure as hell better want that the company understands your overall goals, so you're able to accomplish the things together.
And I think first off, I think a lot of business owners have trouble with having a company mission, let alone understanding the personal mission of what their employees and the people that they work with actually is. Because when people, leave, somebody quit because they wanted to start their own company, or they quit because they're getting $1 an hour more. Like somebody who quits to start their own company, like part of their mission was they want more autonomy potentially. Maybe they didn't have to leave to get that. Maybe you could have given that to them, but because there was no clear expectation set on either end, that person just said, well, in my mind, the only option I have to ever, work for myself is to actually work for myself. It's the difference between an entrepreneur and an intrapreneur. Intra is somebody who actually starts their own company. Intra is somebody who's able to operate essentially as a CEO of their own space within the company, but they don't want necessarily all the stress and pressure of actually being the one to lead it all. So there's a lot of people out there that I think because they were treated so poorly at their company, that's why they actually went out on their own to start their own thing. And now they're realizing like what it's all about. And it sucks. It's good and it's bad at the same time. It all depends on how you operate the business. But I think a lot of people, if they were just treated a little bit better, they would stay in these positions. We wouldn't have this massive shortage right now. You would, instead of having a bunch of little contractors, like when I say little, I mean like, people below 5'6". No, I'm only kidding. But, like small, like 1-man, 2-man operations versus having kind of like what, these super teams where you would have larger organizations, but because they're treated so shitty, people are like, screw this, I'm out.
Yeah. One thing that talk about in the military all the time is taking care of your people. And I think that those who are good leaders actually embody that, and those who are not don't, right? We all can say that, But when people talk to me and say, oh, this guy on my team wants $10,000 more, and let's imagine you're, I don't know, a $700,000 company. Well, if he wants $10,000 more, I'm not saying just take it out of your pocket to give it to him, right? But what I'm saying is, doesn't it make sense? Because if this person is looking for extra money, doesn't it make sense to have a situation where your mission as a business can now align with his mission as well, for him to make a little extra money, to have a game plan to actually how that works, right? So if that's a person who is in a situation where sales makes sense, or if he is in production where it's like, hey, how about we do this? You have 10 projects coming up over the next year. All right. How about for every single one of those projects, we're able to come in under budget and under time without cutting any corners. We're going to make sure that we take care of you at $1,000 a pop, right? So then you're now incentivizing your people to do the things for the mission of the company, but also allowing them to, take care of themselves as well.
And it's funny that you brought that up, because I think a lot of that is everybody gets so hung up on it. Like, well, how can I give $10,000 more? But in reality, it's like, I keep saying, like, when I finally hire like that COO or something that comes in and steps in and does operations, like, it's going to be $100,000 a year salary position, right? A COO would be higher, but just like a director of ops would be about $100,000. Full transparency, they're going to probably step in and find $50,000 worth of redundancies immediately. So it's not really a $100,000 position. It's actually a $50,000 position. So this $10,000 that you're giving to somebody else, if they make everything more efficient, you're probably saving $10,000 in itself. So it's actually net. So you're making your person way happier, and everything's running smoother, which costs you less money. So it actually evens out, and it's a win-win.
Yeah. I mean, if someone wants more money in your business, then they 100% need to know your sales goals. They need to know, probably need to know your revenue. Not probably. They need to know your revenue. They need to know what part they play in the revenue, what part they play in taking away like the expenses as well. So they can be able to say, you know what? Hey, we have this is probably pretty crazy, but we have a pretty high materials bill. So what we generally do is we just order X amount, because that's what we always do, right? But every single job, we always have leftover. So how can we make sure that we're able to, maximize the resources that we have, so we're not spending all this money? So, hey, CEO, or hey, general contractor, I'm your lead foreman, and I'm able to come back to you. We were able to take care of this job. We used less materials than we originally had slotted for, so we didn't purchase as much. 2, we came in less hours, so we spent less time on the job. We were just as effective at getting it done. The customer was absolutely happy. We got that one bonus of make sure we got a review. So we got a review on this job as well. And then we also were able to, so labor was better, materials was better, the customer's happy. So the whole experience overall is better. And now it's like, okay, well, hey, you know what, foreman, you just saved me $2,500. I'm gonna go ahead and give you $1,000.
Yeah, I love that, because it's putting parameters around it. You're not giving a bonus to give a bonus. You're not giving money to give money. What you're doing, because let's say with that review that you get from somebody, right? 80% of your marketing department is your past customers, whether it's referrals or reviews that they're leaving. People are going to go online and read those reviews. So build that into the criteria. Hey, look, you want extra money? That's fine. Here's, in my mind, here's how we make this worth an extra $10,000 a year. I want this, and every single person has to leave us a 5-star review. If you do not get a 5-star review on this project, or they don't leave one, then I'm taking $500 out.
Yep.
So building in those things where it's like, because then it incentivizes that person. Okay, great, I'm in. Or they're gonna go, you know what? Maybe I don't really want the $10,000, because then they're gonna have to shit or get off the pot. But it's a win-win, because that will help you grow more, and at the same time, that will help that person grow even more. So I love it. And let's do this, because I know we're gonna go into my stuff. We'll end the podcast here.
Yep.
And then we'll just do another one, because I have a very different experience when it comes to my military career, and we'll talk about that, because I essentially did a lot of the same stuff, but just I failed. I didn't make it through. So that will be, I guess at this point, next week's podcast for you guys. But we'll hit pause, go take a lap, and we'll come back and just talk about mine.
Sounds good, brother.
Cool. All right. So at the end of this, do me a favor, everybody. This is what we're really pushing for more now. Please, at the next stoplight that you get it, leave us a review. It really helps us out. It lets us know. I think Chris was the last person that did it. Thank you so much for dropping one in there. Please, it really helps us out. big time. That's our only ask. This shit's free. We do it because, the whole goal is to take a lot of the mindset stuff that we're doing and a lot of the tactics that we're doing and help you out. Our only ask at this point, drop a review. Don't just put the star rating. Just put in a couple sentences. Hey, this is what I like about it, and you're done. That'll help big time. You just got to do it one time. Thank you guys very much. See you next time.
See ya.